tongue. The entire world will hear it and listen.
Good evening. Welcome to the Millennium Stage. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Christy Klenke. I'm the assistant principal horn of the Opera House Orchestra. And all of these amazing musicians on stage with me today are also members of the Opera House Orchestra. We have Sarah Hahn, our assistant principal clarinetist, Joey Grimmer, our principal bassoonist, Greg Akagi, our assistant principal timpanist, Emily Tsai, our assistant principal oboist, and Sandra Del Cid Davies, our principal piccolo. Thank you. The Opera House Orchestra puts on most of the programs that you see in the Kennedy Center Opera House, as like the ballets that tour through is our orchestra playing with them, as well as many of the touring shows have members of our orchestra. And also the members of our orchestra comprise the Washington National Opera Orchestra. The program that we're going to play for you this evening is entitled Rhythm and Winds, because all of the pieces that we've chosen have a very strong rhythmic element, whether that is a repetitive rhythmic ostinato or complex rhythms that interweave with one another. And in order to highlight that rhythmic element, we've brought on our percussionist, Greg, which is not something that you'd normally see with a woodwind quintet, but we're really happy to welcome him and help us emphasize the rhythm of our music tonight. So this first piece that we played is entitled Afro-Cuban Concerto for Wind Quintet by Valerie Coleman, and it actually did not include a percussion part, but our awesome percussionist Greg has added one in, and we think it sounds awesome with this piece. Valerie Coleman is a modern-day composer. She's a prolific composer who's written a lot of music, especially for winds. She was a longtime flutist with the Amani Winds, which is a woodwind quintet known for their very charismatic and energetic performance style, and her music really reflects that kind of energy. And she's also a very important music educator, and so she's just a really strong figure in the music world these days. So that first piece we played was the first movement of the concerto called Afro, and this next piece that we're going to play is the third movement, which is entitled Danza, and we hope you enjoy this next piece.
All right, thank you so much again for being here. The next piece on the program was actually written for wind quintet plus percussion. So Greg did not have to make up his own part for this next one. But we will be playing two movements of a piece called Songbook Volume 3 by Ivan Trevino. Ivan is a percussionist himself, and he and I actually went to school together at the Eastman School of Music way back in the day. And so it's really cool to kind of reconnect with those people that you went to school with, because they become your colleagues later on in life when you become a professional musician. But I was a part of a wind quintet called WindSync, and WindSync is the one that commissioned Ivan to write this piece for us. I'm no longer in the group, but they're still going strong, so you should definitely check them out. So when he wrote this, he actually wrote 4 movements. Again, we'll just be playing 2 of them for you today. But each movement was inspired by a different indie artist that Ivan really listened to over the years and was inspired by. So the first movement we'll be playing for you is called Saint Annie, after Saint Vincent, the artist Saint Vincent. And then the other movement we'll be playing is called Burn, after David Byrne from the Talking Heads. So if you know those artists, perhaps you can hear those elements in the writing that that Ivan put into this piece. So we hope you enjoy Songbook Volume 3, Saint Annie and Burn. All right, now we get to kick Greg out of the group. No, I'm just kidding. He's actually going to be playing on the NSO Pops concert, the Top Gun show. So if any of you are here for that, you'll see him in the back playing lots of rhythms for Top Gun. So, well, now that, yes, exactly. Give Greg a round of applause. So now that we have lost our percussionist, let's see if us wind players can have just as good a rhythm without him. The next couple of pieces we'll be playing are by a friend of mine as well, Miguel de Aguila. He's an Uruguayan composer, currently living in Seattle. But this first piece that we're playing for you is called Sambiada. And he actually wrote this, again, for my wind quintet, Wind Sync, as part of a project, a larger project of us recording an album of his music at Abbey Road Studios in London. So I got to travel all the way to London and play fabulous music in the same studio that the Beatles recorded their album in, which was really cool. They actually told me that it was the same microphones that they used way back then because technology just made them smaller, not necessarily better. So it was really cool to be in that space, and this piece was written specifically for that project. So I was lucky enough to be part of the premiere and the making of this piece in my own small way. But Miguel is wonderful, and he writes a lot of Latin-inspired rhythms, as you will hear. And I and Christy get to play our own percussion instruments. So hopefully we will do it just as well as Greg would do it. So this is Sambiada. All right, yeah, so now the other piece by Miguel de Aguila that we'll be playing is a movement from his second quintet called In Heaven. And this uses a lot of percussive elements as well, but we don't actually have to play other instruments. There are things that we can do called extended techniques on our instruments, which sometimes can be very interesting sounding, but I think a lot of these are really fun. So just so that we prep your ears for what's about to happen, some of the extended techniques that we'll be hearing are some key clacking on the flute. Yes, there you go. You have to listen really hard for that. And then tonguing on the bocal in the bassoon. Like that. And then Christy has the hardest extended technique of all, where she has to hit her mouthpiece. Yeah, there we go. And there's some glisses that happen in the clarinet and also some subtone tonguing, if you want to demonstrate. And then I get to do a fun kissy noise like this. Like that. So all of these combined, these percussive sounds will create this lovely piece in heaven, and it kind of speeds up and gets louder throughout and then goes crazy at the end. So we hope you enjoy this movement from Quintet number 2, In Heaven.
Next, we'll be performing a relatively new staple of the woodwind quintet repertoire, Paquito de Rivera's Aires Tropicales. De Rivera is one of the great living clarinetists, saxophonists, and composers, bridging the worlds of classical music, jazz, and Latin American traditions. We will be presenting 4 out of the 7 movements. The first is Alborada, which is a morning song. The instruments slowly wake up, which transitions us into Son, which is a Cuban dance, which became one of the roots of salsa music. There's a repeated offbeat ostinato figure throughout. It starts in the bassoon, heads to the horn. The 4th movement is a Venezuelan waltz, which sways in unexpected ways. And the 6th and final movement we'll be playing is the contra dance, which traveled from Europe to the Caribbean. It is full of rhythmic drive and wit and brings the set to an energetic close. Hope you enjoy.
The last piece on our program is called Hold Sacred by Akshaya Tucker. This is actually now a part of a bigger piece which holds 3 movements, and this is the second movement. But this piece was written during the COVID pandemic, and as we know, it was an incredibly difficult time for all of us. And for me especially, what was hardest, I think, was the isolation and the lack of human contact. But it also was a time that made me really believe what was dearest and special to me, which was my relationship, my people, and the music that brought us together. And so that I hold sacred. I hope you enjoy.
Thank you for joining us at Millennium Stage. For more information about upcoming shows, please check out the website or Facebook page. At this time, we ask you please head to the back of the seating area. Thank you. We hope you